Man, it's a really row body.
Yeah, yes, it is. And welcome here to season number 2 of the Push to Pass podcast. I am Derik Vance, and joining us, we have a lot of changes, Josh. I think we've made from the last time that we were together up until now. And obviously, we'll get into those here as the show unfolds. But first and foremost, Josh, how has your off season been? It's been quite busy, and I'm sure we will get into that, like I said, as the show unfolds.
Off season been good. Just following the what's happening in different teams, who's moving where, who's going there, who's getting ready. We had the chance to be able to go to California for some testing, but we weren't able to get out there. But just the fact that we were invited was a big step in the right direction for this podcast, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. We are definitely headed, I think, in the right direction. And like I said, we'll get into some of the changes that we've made here in the off season. But first, before we do that, Josh, I want to bring in somebody that I think is going to be very valuable to this show as it comes to driver and I've had the opportunity to call this individual's races on iRacing. He has been up, I think, as of late. But this gentleman not only has NASCAR Cup experience, but NASCAR Xfinity and obviously IndyCar as House. But proud to bring on, proud to have as a driver analyst, RC Enerson. RC, first and foremost, huge thank you for taking time out of your day, obviously to join us here. It's going to be exciting to have you all along. And for people that may not be familiar with yourself, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. Yeah, I mean, I started off racing karting when I was 5. Both my parents grew up in Indianapolis, so what better than a couple of race fans already to get things underway. And when I was about 4 years old, got into those Hot Wheels cars, just had boxes and boxes of those things. And my mom was like, "Hey, there's a little dirt track up here. We're in Florida." And he was like, "No, I'm from Indianapolis. If he's racing karts, he's racing on asphalt." And that kind of kickstarted the whole thing. Got all the way up to jump into cars when I was 12, get into the whole road to Indy, and then ended up making my IndyCar debuts when I was 19 with Dale Coyne. Got to do a Daytona 24-hour in 2017, and then it was just kind of off and on ever since then. It's been in the car, out the car, just trying to take on every opportunity I can get. Got the opportunity in 2020 to do some NASCAR stuff. In 2021, got to do the Cup Series stuff, a couple more IndyCar races. So it's been a bit of a wild ride, and obviously still pushing to be in the car as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely hoping to get back in the car there as you mentioned, hopefully sometime in 2023. And right before we went on air, I know Josh was asking about any side of you, maybe around IndyCar this year, or at the greatest spectacle in Raceapolis 500. Any plans that you can elaborate on at this moment in time for that?
Well, I think everybody's trying to be in the 500. There's only they will go above 33, but we'll see how we can get there. We do have a full car and a spare tub. It's just putting it with a team and placing ourselves there. I mean, we've been working on it for a while, and I think it looks pretty good this year. Nothing really announceable as of now, but yeah, we've been working really, really hard on it, and I think it's a good chance to see us there. Just the pieces have to fall in the right spot.
Yeah, definitely need a little luck your way. And how cool would it be to have the official driver analyst here on the Push to Pass podcast in the Indianapolis 500? That would definitely be a moment in time for all of us to share for sure, and hopefully RC you'll be able to get that. But it has been an interesting, I think, guys, off season, as a silly season here in IndyCar. A lot of changes, drivers switching teams, drivers switching numbers of drivers that are coming up. Let's take a look at the team to 2023, and I think RC, you really did touch on something that this may be one of the biggest fields I think, that IndyCar fans are going to see when it comes to the number of cars in quite some time.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we've been doing a spreadsheet on it too. We wanted to know like what amount of numbers. If every single car that we think would be entered enters, I think you're at 35. Which is like my 2021 year. We had 35. I don't see how we get to anywhere past 35. And who knows if the engine manufacturers want to go above 33. So it's kind of all up in the air. There's still, I guess, technically myself, a second dryer car, and they haven't quite announced the fourth, who's driving the fourth Rahal car. So it's, I mean, there's definitely some seats still to be announced. I think announced seats right now with drivers, I think we were at like 31 or 30. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see if they can get to bump day back.
Josh, before we take a look at the changes in drivers and teams coming into 2023, what are your thoughts here? In the off season, the silly season, and just seeing news about drivers changing teams, changing numbers, so on and so forth.
I mean, there's been quite a few changes that I've seen. People going here, people going there. I don't think it's good. I think it's really not going to affect the product. I mean, you've got some great drivers that are going to be out there. Now that we're past the Alex Palou contract dispute that we had last year, what was a contract? What's not a contract? That was the biggest thing next to Scott Dixon once again being able to dominate the field and take home that championship for IndyCar last year. I personally am looking forward to seeing what the young guns can do. I'm a big fan of Pato O'Ward. My favorite driver, Jimmy Johnson, left the series. He's going to be doing other stuff. I think he's going to be try to do a couple races here and there, but he's not going to be full time like he was last year. So I'm focusing mainly on Pato this year. Also, of course, if RC is able to make it in May, I'll be out there. I'll find a way, or if I have to, I'll make my own RC Enerson shirt so I could be out there cheering him on. But I can't wait till the season starts. Last year was my first year actually watching full time IndyCar, and you've gotten me really involved in looking at the news and who's going where and what's doing what, Vance. So I just can't wait.
Yeah, I think we're all in that same boat, anxious to get things kickstarted down in St. Pete in just a few weeks' time. But before we get into the schedule, let's take a look at the teams that are going to be rolling out here in 2023. And I'll ask you guys some of your favorites. We look at these teams. So let me see if I can pull this graphic up on screen there for everyone. I know it may be a little small to read. But I will go through these the best I can here, and we'll see what everybody thinks here. But AJ Foyt to Enterprise is going to kick things off, obviously in 2023, alphabetical order. Santino Ferrucci, that's going to be a new driver there for AJ Foyt, Enterprise, and then also going to be a rookie this year. Had a great campaign in I guess what it's now called, but Indy NXT. Benjamin Peterson. So going to be interesting to see how the young rookie does there. And then Andretti Autosport, obviously everyone has their eyes on this team year in and out. You have Colton Herta, who really is the veteran, I think. And then last year, AJ Foyt Racing for a year now. He is with Andretti Autosport. Kyle Kirkwood, great in 2022. And then Roman Grosjean. And then don't forget the Canadian there, Devlin D. Francesca, someone to keep your eye on as well. I think this is just going to be a 500 off here, but Marco Andretti. That'd be interesting to see. But Marco Andretti rounds out the stable there for Andretti Auto Racing. Next, I think the team car owner, I think that had the off-season news, Arrow McLaren, and I think dynamic stable that they have added the aforementioned Pato Award, which I think he's going to be one of the title contenders this year. Also, they brought back Felix Rosenquist, added another Indianapolis 500 winner in Alexander Rossi, and then Tony Kanaan, who's going to the 500, the Indianapolis 500 for Arrow McLaren. So I think I'll throw it over to both you here. First, Josh, what do you think of the stable that Zach Brown and Arrow McLaren have built for this 2023 campaign?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Zach Brown is not afraid to spend some money because those right there are some heavy hitters. Pato Award, like I was talking about, he's my favorite to win the championship this year. I feel like he was on the cusp of winning a couple last year. But I think this is the year that he pulls it through, and he's gonna have a really good year. Rosenquist, don't know too much about him. I know I met him last May. Really nice guy, and of course, you can't ever count out Alexander Rossi. I mean, he's a younger driver, but he's got a lot of experience. And one of my all-time favorites from the past, Tony Kanaan. I mean, anytime Tony gets out there on the 2.5 mile oval out in Indy, you can't count him out. Him and Helio Castroneves are the two senior drivers that I root for the most. But once again,
I think
Brown must have deep pockets, because I mean that right there, that murderer's row. I'm going to compare it to my favorite team, the Yankees. That's a murderer's row of drivers right there.
Yeah,
Zach
I think
Brown has obviously dumped cash into the IndyCar team, and don't forget too, they're also, I believe, in the process of building a new facility here in the Indianapolis area as well. I'll throw it over to RC. I know you know a little more about this when it comes to the drivers, but adding not only Alexander Rossi, who's a 500 winner, but Tony Kanaan. How much is that going to help not only Felix Rosenquist and Pato Award?
Yeah, I think with Arrow McLaren, they kind of came in with I think it was 2019, and I think they're just dipping their toes in the water. You put them as an average team at the time, with running 2 cars first year program, even their second year program, and it wasn't really till last year where they just kind of became a powerhouse. And now this year, they're going to be a powerhouse, just like Chip Ganassi, just like Penske. It's going to be really, really competitive with those 3, because it's you can definitely tell they're biggest, the strongest, along with Andretti. I think it's those 4 teams that are going to be really, really competitive. And then you bring in a guy like Tony Kanaan, who at the 500 is always up front. It doesn't matter what he's in; he's going to be up front. He just knows that track inside and out. Rossi, he's super, super quick. He obviously had that fuel mileage win, but he's also been strong at the 500. But that's a powerhouse team. I think Rosenquist struggled a lot last year in the beginning, but it wasn't until that mid-season where he just really started clicking off the podiums, the top 5s, and kind of everything started to click. But I'm excited to see what he can do starting a season off strong.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right when it comes to Felix Rosenquist. I think it was the second half of the year where he had a dominant car week after week. and I wonder if that kind of propelled him to be able to stay in that Aaron McLaren stable. There was talk of Felix moving on into I think F1 or F2 with McLaren, but I'm glad to see that Felix was able to get a ride, and I think it's going to be interesting to see to both of you, RC and Josh. You were talking about the dominance that Tony Kanaan has had out at the 500, and we were witness of it last year. He was just within an eyelash of winning with Chip Ganassi. So it's going to be interesting to see, I think, with the money and the resources that Arrow McLaren is going to be able to throw to see if he can maybe sneak out one more 500 victory before Tony calls it a illustrious career to say the least. But obviously, you touched them all. This racing team here, Chip Ganassi. They're obviously one of the favorites year in and year out with defending 500 champion Marcus Ericsson. This isn't a bad stable either. You also have Scott Dixon, Alex Palou, which I think he's 500 victory here in the not so distant future as well. And then they have they're going to split time in the number 11 car, their fourth entry with Marcus Armstrong, and then Takuma Sato is also going to be driving that number 11 car. So another fine stable that Chip has over there at Chip Ganassi Racing. HD Motorsports. I know there was a lot of talk that David Malukas may be on the move, but I was happy to see that he being able to stay at Contender. I think he proved a lot last year as a rookie, and then also too excited to see this. The last to get a full for this 2023 season with Dale Coyne Racing, and then along with Rick Racing as well. And this has to be one of the cooler names, I think, in racing. Their Stingray Rob. So was excited to see him get full tied for this year as well. And then I know you were talking about maybe Dreyer and Reinbold having that second car. Not a lot of new come out there yet. Hopefully we can kind of persuade the people over there at Dreyer and Reinbold to give RC a ride there for the 500. But Stephen Wilson is going to be coming back second leave that be attempting the Indianapolis 500. And then next, the local kid here, fan favorite, Ed Carpenter Racing. Big news today, I think. And we'll touch on that here momentarily as well. Ed Carp, Renus VK, star on the rise as well. And then Ed will get in the car from time to time as well. But if you didn't hear today's news, and I think this may be, and I could be wrong here, and I'm curious to hear both of your guys' inputs on this. Connor Daly, who is in Ed Carpenter Racing full-time this year, is also going to be attempting to qualify and make the Daytona 500 with Floyd Mayweather and his racing team. I'm curious, again, both your guys' thoughts. Is this going to be something that we see for the next few years, a trend where IndyCar drivers are getting that one-off run with the in the NASCAR series there at Daytona?
I'll let Josh take this one first, and then I'll follow.
I would imagine. I mean, it sounds cool to get those IndyCar drivers in there and get them into a different car, see how they can handle it. I bet I would imagine RC can attest to the fact that getting in an IndyCar and getting in a NASCAR are two totally different things. But if we can get more and more of the IndyCar drivers to cross over, I think if you get the IndyCar drivers to cross over and they can qualify for those NASCAR races, I think that would bring some of the NASCAR viewership over to IndyCar. On those weekends where NASCAR and IndyCar are going, you might be able to switch a couple over if you get a good driver that's out there showing that he's versatile. I know a lot of some drivers have tried in the past to do the Indy 500 and the 600 for NASCAR, and that's always a talking point of most sports broadcasters on that weekend. RC, can you attest to how difficult it is to go from one car to another?
Yeah, they're polar opposites. It's crazy. I first got to drive it like for first time ever in a stock car, Road America in the Xfinity car, and that was during the whole COVID deal. So we didn't get any practice or qualifying. So I hadn't even started the car until we were on the grid. And it took me the entire first stage to really just figure out what I was doing. You have to completely rewire your brain. It's a lot about technique and how heavy that car is, and just no downforce. Where the IndyCar has so much downforce, it rewards pushing at 110%. The more speed you roll, the more grip you have, the more time you're going to find. Where the NASCAR is just like on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. You're trying to not slide the car so much. You feel like you're wheeling the reins back a lot. It's a lot more technique, I feel like. But yeah, when I saw that news come out about Connor doing the 500, is really exciting. I know he did his first NASCAR Cup race. I think it was last year at the Charlotte Roval, and from what I heard from him, it was not exactly the best experience. I think they were on fire 3 or 4 times. The cool suit stopped working, something like that. Maybe the water. I think it might have been the water hose stopped working. I mean, there was so much that had gone wrong. I'm excited to see him finally get a chance to. Hopefully, nothing goes wrong in the car, and he can have a good showing at the 500. Which I'll be there in the stands watching. I'll be at the 500. It's a 2-hour drive for me to get over there, so I'm gonna go to that. I'll be excited to watch him do that. But yeah, it's a completely different car to drive. But you brought up a good point about the fan base. I mean, I think you see a lot of IndyCar drivers go over there. One perfect example is AJ Allmendinger. He's one of the fan favorites now, and he came over from open wheel background, Champ Car, IndyCar, and he's making his way on that side. So it's definitely just a different form of racing, and it just takes a bit to get used to.
All right, let's flip the script here a little bit. And you talked about the differences in car and all the adaptivity that you have to have. How many NASCAR drivers do you really think, or that you've heard, are interested in crossing over or doing maybe a one-off in an IndyCar?
I don't think I've heard a lot. I mean, the one thing that I think everybody can attest to is just how brave it was for Jimmy Johnson to jump over. All these guys that run IndyCar, they eat, sleep, breathe. They came up growing up from a very young age racing open wheel cars. It's getting used to the light car, lots of grip, really high corner speeds, G-forces. It rewards pushing way outside your comfort zone. I mean, at street courses, you're going into corners, coming to the apex, not knowing if you're going to make the exit on a qualifying lap. And it just takes a lot of bravery, which a lot of these guys, including myself, we grew up open wheel racing. That's just kind of the normal. Where you look at the NASCAR side, and most of those NASCAR guys came up through all circle track racing, comes through kind of just a complete different background. And I don't know of a lot of people that want to cross over just because of the learning curve. I mean, even with IndyCar drivers going to NASCAR, it's a giant learning curve to figure things out. Do I think it's easier for open wheel guys to go over and drive the NASCAR than it would be for NASCAR drivers coming over and drive the IndyCar? Yeah. Just because it feels like when you get in the NASCAR, you got to wheel the reins way back. Where if you come from the NASCAR and go to the IndyCar, you better be hitting 110% to try to maximize the car. Because the more speed you're going to roll, you're going to get more grip. Sometimes when you don't push the car fast enough, it loses tons and tons of grip and doesn't feel good. So I think the crossover is a tough thing. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see some crossover in the next coming years. I don't think you'll see any crossovers this year just because of how big the full-time field is, 27 cars, I think it is. I don't think there's any room for anybody to come over and cross over and do any road course racing. Maybe the 500, but yeah, it's just tight in the NASCAR field when they run so many cars. Yeah, it's a little easier to add cars for one-off races, and because they have like a 34 race schedule versus IndyCar's 17, 18 races. So yeah, the crossover thing's interesting. and I'm excited to see who else does it.
RC, can I ask you a question? I recently watched an interview. It was on Dale Earnhardt's podcast. It was Ty Gibbs. He said a lot of times if he's going to a new track or something, he'll get on iRacing, and it'll help him feel out what it's like to drive on that track. Would the NASCAR guys be able to? I mean, obviously never being in any of the cars, would they be able to hop on an iRacing and maybe help them put them more at ease, or is it just you got to get in the car to feel out what it's like to be in that Indy car opposed to being in that NASCAR, that stock car?
Yeah, I think iRacing brings a lot to the table for a lot of drivers. I think the most important thing that any driver uses it for is to learn a track they've never driven before. I've used it plenty of times. That's really one of the most fundamental things I would use iRacing for, besides more or less just to have fun. The one thing I don't like about it, with just how simulation is, it is almost impossible to mimic how you're going to feel in the car. Just from a comfort level, it gives you a little bit of a false sense of grip. There is some things you can take away with reference points, and that the tracks are laser scanned, so you can get some idea of line and kind of feel the car out. But I wouldn't take too much under my belt from iRacing to go into the car. I would more or less just get it as a track learning experience. The only time you're really gonna use a sim to get the upper edge is if you find if you get in one of the factory, like the Chevy simulator or the Ford simulator, Toyota simulator, or even just the Dallara simulator in Indy. Those are the ones that are you're in the thing all day. They have their own programming. That's where you're really going to get the most out of a simulator. But yeah, iRacing's a great tool. I just think for a lot of drivers like Ty Gibbs, people that are that high up in racing, you're going to get more out of just driving the car. In the first 3 laps, you learn more than you are going to learn the entire weekend. And but iRacing will give you a starting point.
Okay.
Definitely good knowledge there. And I know, like I said, I've seen and Josh, the type iRacer that RC is, and second to none. There's one I'd want to learn from. It would definitely be RC. But finishing up here with the teams here for 2023, we have Hunkos Hollinger Racing. I'm a huge fan of this team. Happy to be able to see Callum Ilott, who was a rookie last year, which I thought was mighty impressive for being a one-car team. The success that Callum was able to gain with just that one-car team. But this year they've expanded to 2. I don't know if you can talk a little bit to RC about the driver they added, but Augustin Campio, I believe is how that's pronounced. He's going to be a rookie driving the 8 car. Do you have any type of background on this driver and what the fans can expect to see out of that 78 car?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. They announced him, and I tried to look some stuff up just to see, because I'd never heard the name. But I didn't really find too much. So it's going to be interesting to see him start to test, get used to the car, see how he acclimates to it. Because, like I said, the IndyCar is it's a whole nother beast. I mean, there's nothing that compares to, like, besides Formula One, to that wheel weight with no power steering. It's crazy how much it takes to turn and just how physical the car is. Getting it around that track, especially street courses, it's just another animal. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, and we've seen new people come in. We've seen them not do so great. We've seen new people come in and really surprise. So it's just going to be kind of a coin flip, and we're going to have to see once it comes to St. Pete.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it said it's going to be interesting to see how acclimated that he gets in that number. You talked earlier about the 24 hours of Daytona, the Rolex. Talk about a team that has a lot of momentum coming into St. Pete in just a couple weeks. That is Meyershank Racing, I think, for the second time in a row. They have won the 24-hour at Daytona, and then the lineup that they have coming in, Elio Castroneves driving for that elusive fifth Indy 500 championship, which would be he would be the record holder. He would hold the most wins there, and then also former winner as well, Simon Pagenaud. And then down to the last two teams we have. I know RC, you touched on this, having a potentially open seat for this team here. Racing, you have Graham Rahal, and then you have two drivers that did a number switch. Same team, just different numbers. Jack Harvey goes from the number 45 Hy-Vee to the number 30. And then Rookie of the Year, which I thought was impressive, goes to the number 45 car, Christian Lundgaard. And then, like you said, they have that one open seat still to be announced. That is, hopefully we can campaign to get RC there if Dreyer Reinbold doesn't take him. And then, obviously the last team we haven't mentioned, powerhouse year after year. They have the defending series champion, and then two guys that if it wasn't willpower, these two guys were finding themselves in P1 or winning the race. Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, and number 12, the reigning defending series willpower. So you can never count out Team Penske year out. But as we look at these teams, Josh and RC, I'm kind of curious to hear which team, which stable are you keeping a close watch on during this 2020?
I think one of the biggest teams that's going to be something that comes out with how much with the driver changes and adding Rossi. I think it's going to be Arrow McLaren's going to really surprise some people, and then I know Penske's going to be at the front. As you guys probably already tell from year to year, sometimes engine manufacturers have the slight upper edge. It looks like Honda kind of had it the past couple of years. They're that real upper edge, especially at the Speedway. I think this year might be Chevy's year. You never know. It kind of flops around. You never really know until we get to St. Pete, or really until we get to IMS and you get to see the no-toe speeds and really who's got it. And I think Arrow McLaren's going to be there and Penske's going to be there. Chip Ganassi and Andretti, they're going to be winning races and they're going to be up front. But I think you're going to see Arrow McLaren and Penske running and dominating.
I can concur with what he said. I mean, obviously he's more of an expert on this than I am. Like I said, last year being my first year full time, I'm excited to see what Arrow McLaren can do. Ed Carpenter Racing, I think they are going to just from looking at their lineup of drivers, I think Connor Daly, I think he's poised for a breakout year, and Renus VK. He'll be middle of the pack, but I think to begin the year. But then I think as the year goes on, I think he's going to get much better, get more racing underneath his belt, and I think he's. So I would say watch out for Ed Carpenter Racing. Of course, Ed Carpenter's going to come out and try to win the 500 as he does every year, and as a hometown boy, he'll get lots of fans out there. But I think Arrow McLaren is going to dominate this year. I feel like Penske. I have a feeling they're going to take a step back, not a giant step, but I don't think either of their three are going to win the series championship this year.
And I'll add to that, and I think it's going to be a clean sweep across the board. I think Arrow McLaren, Zach Brown, the whole gang over there showed that they mean business in 2023. Not only all of the funding and resources that they're putting into the IndyCar team, but the stable of drivers that they have there. Obviously, I think we're all in agreement that Pato Award is going to be a championship contender. He showed that last year. I don't think he regresses one bit. Also, too, Felix Rosenquist. I know we talked about how hot the second half of the year was for him, so he's riding a little bit of momentum as well. And you can never count out the year, I think, second half of the year that Alexander Rossi had over there at Andretti Autosports, and he's going to bring all of that momentum and experience to Arrow McLaren, and then their ace in the hole. So to say, Tony Kanaan, TK, you can never count him out at the 500 as well. So I think it's a clean sweep across the board. Arrow McLaren is definitely going to be, I think, the team in 2023 to watch out for. And I'm in agreement with RC, and that's not because I'm biased towards Chevy, but I think all these Chevy teams are going to have some excellent pieces of machinery this year, and I think you're going to see a lot of these Chevy powered cars towards the front there. Race in and race out. Before we get into the schedule, because I know there's a couple tweaks there, and then interesting schedule that I'm curious to get RC's take on it and see if we're completely out in left field, or maybe this is something that IndyCar should listen to. But we here at the Push to Pass podcast are so proud to be able to bring these two sponsors on to the show. And the first one you see up there on screen, Always Ready 1776. So if you're a patriot and you're looking for some patriotic gear, check out Always Ready 1776. Like I said, apparel, headwear, and so much more. Go over to alwaysready1776.com, and you can use the promo code that you see up on screen, Push to Pass, for 10% off of your order. And then another thank you and sponsor for the show here is Get 'em Associates, design and remodeling contractors. If you are in the Indianapolis area and you are looking for new, remodel your house. If your house needs some up-to-date repairs or remodeling, go check out the guys over at Get 'em Associates. You can find them at getem.com. And then as it shows down here, use the promo code Push to Pass for $250 off design services. So huge thank you to both of those sponsors. You'll be able to see all year on the Push to Pass podcast. We are halfway home, I think, here in episode 17, not only going over the off season, but previewing the 2023 season. And next, I think we need to take a look at the schedule, because there were a few tweaks, I think, that IndyCar made to the schedule. And then there are like I said, we had a discussion earlier today, me and Josh sees take on it. But as you see up here, this is the complete 2023 schedule for the NTT IndyCar series. As we've talked about here, in the next few weeks, we kick things off in the streets of St. Petersburg, Florida, just a couple hours away, I think, from RC, and then we head to the Texas Motor Speedway, and then out to California, the streets of Long Beach, and then Barber. I believe that's Birmingham, Alabama, I think, if that memory serves me correctly. And then Josh, our favorite, especially if you are in Indianapolis or Indiana, it is the month of May. Not only do we have the Indianapolis road course there on May 13th, but then we have the greatest spectacle race in Indianapolis 500 Memorial Day weekend. And then following that, used to be, well, no, it wasn't. That's right. You're going to the streets of Detroit. Now, before RC, this used to be at Belle Isle, but now that has been moved to the streets of Detroit. We'll kind of get your take on this here as we finish up the schedule. And then we go to Road America, and then the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And that is over the 4th of July weekend. And then they head back for the second year in a row to the streets of Toronto. And then a doubleheader race weekend in the Iowa Speedway there. A great show that Hy-Vee and all of those sponsors put on last year. And then the streets in Nashville, we go back there for the third year in a row. Definitely excited to go there. And then we head right back to Indianapolis, August 12th for the second of 2 road courses this year. And then rounding out the schedule, August 27th, Worldwide Technology Raceway, Portland International Raceway, and then the season finale in September at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. So again, like I said, a little bit of a couple tweaks here and there, but RC, the one I'm kind of curious about is moving the race that used to be the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle, and now they've constructed a street course in downtown Detroit. Curious to get your thoughts when you heard that news.
I think it's awesome. I love the Belle Isle layout. I've done plenty of the pace car rides there year in, year out with the IndyCar experience guys, and it's a really awesome track. It's just impossible to get fans there. There's very, very limited parking that's on Belle Isle, and then besides that, you're taking a really long shuttle to get over there, and I think that really kind of hurt them on the fan base side. And now being in downtown Detroit, that's going to bring a whole bunch more people to get access to that. And then not only that, it's going to be a brand new street track for these guys. Who's going to figure it out first with very limited practice? That's going to be the real take. Same way when we first went to Nashville. Who's going to figure it out the quickest with the limited time? And I think that just kind of throws a wrench in it for everybody.
Yeah, talking about the streets of Detroit, I know, like I said, it used to be at Belle Isle. Now they've moved it to downtown Detroit. Is there any of the iRacing sims that you know of that have this Detroit course, or is it just going to be, kind of learning the track by the driver's seat of their pants, so to say?
And some of the very, very, very expensive sims, like I mentioned, the Chevy simulator, the Dallara simulator, they construct these tracks. I mean, they've drove them in a street car. They kind of have an idea of where they're placing stuff, so they create their own programs. They don't use any, commercial sim racing program. They have their own private one, so they're able to construct some tracks, and be able to test on them in the simulators for all the drivers that are full time. But I don't think anybody that just wants to get on and try to drive the track before the IndyCar drivers show up. You're not going to see that on the sim. Kind of like how racing put the Chicago Street Course in there. I think you might see that sometime soon. Once they get an idea of what it's kind of going to be like, they might throw it in there. But I think it's going to be some time.
All right. I'm curious to hear, and Josh, I'm going to get your take on this as well. Obviously, outside of the oval that is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Josh, if there was one course that you would be able to get in an Indy car and take a lap around, obviously without killing yourself, what course would that be?
It's probably a tie. It would be the Nashville course. That looks like a really cool course. And then also Texas, because I've heard that I wouldn't be driving. I'd want to be in that 2-seater, but I'd want whoever's driving to ramp it up, because I hear you can get upwards to some great speed and get those G forces going through you. I think that would be a really cool track to go around.
Now, RC, I know obviously you've driven at Indy. But is there another course that that they go to this year that you see up on screen that you might not driven at before that you would like to take a crack at?
Yeah, I think really, I think the only few that I haven't driven would be obviously the streets of Detroit. Nobody's really got to drive that. Texas, Nashville, and Portland. All the other ones I've been to. I think Nashville would be really cool. The whole bridge concept really blew everybody's mind, especially with how rough that place was and how raw the racing was. It was actually really good racing. It's rare you see super good racing on a street course, just usually with how tight quarters it is. But Nashville produced really, really well. So I think that would have been a really cool one. And then obviously Texas, I kind of, just from watching, I haven't got a chance to drive it, but I have a love-hate relationship with that track, just watching the drivers go around, knowing just how tough it is to pass with the PJ1 stuff. I think if they could turn that thing into a multi-groove multi-groove racing for IndyCar, kind of like how Iowa is. You can run multiple grooves. It would make the racing a lot better because that dirty air is brutal in an IndyCar. So it's when you get down to one lane racing at Texas, it's really hard to get close. It's hard to get runs. You can't really go side by side into the corners because you'll just get pushed up into the crap, and that'll send you off into the wall. So it's tough racing. I think if they did some modifications to make it a multi-groove race, Texas would be awesome. But I think Texas or Nashville would be my picks. Portland, I'm not too crazy about. Doesn't really seem like a very fun track to drive. It's kind of like a mixture of Sonoma and Mid-Ohio without the elevation. A lot of long flowing corners, which is tough in IndyCar again with all the aero push. When you get long flowing corners, it makes it incredibly hard to get close and pass.
I never thought I would say this, but we're all in agreement. Again, we all agreed on which teams to watch out for. And if I was able to get in one car, not tear it up and not kill myself, I would love to take a lap at Nashville. I've been able to have the opportunity to cover that the last 2 years, and I think it's awesome to watch those cars wide open going up the bridge there, the Veterans Bridge. I think that's one of the coolest things I think IndyCar has presented to the fans. So definitely a huge fan of Nashville, and obviously I can't wait to go back. I think the atmosphere is amazing. Everything is right there, and it just reminds me a lot here of Broad Ripple, especially the way the establishments are set up, but just the fans that flock there for that weekend, and the enthusiasm that they have is just totally off the charts. But me and Josh were talking earlier today before we got on here at the schedule, and and I'm of the opinion, and I think Josh shares the same one, that I think IndyCar is doing itself a disservice by trying to, and I don't know if they're trying, but competing with NASCAR in these time slots. I think it would bode well for IndyCar, and I think a lot of other people have had this discussion and think this as well, that there's a couple of these races that I've highlighted that I would love to see be night races. I think IndyCar needs a lot more of those. I think the IndyCar liveries look awesome, just sparkling underneath the lights. Like, I would love to see Texas, and then maybe make the first race there on Saturday in Iowa under the lights as well. Josh, I want to hear your thoughts, and then RC, make sure we're not walking off the cliff.
Well, I'll jump into it. It's just
Josh, I think you're muted.
Yeah, when it comes down to night racing, Iowa and Texas are the only places you can do it. All these tracks, it'd be cool to be at night, but you just need way too many lights to make it happen. I know they've done some work in Indianapolis to try to get the endurance race they're going to have there. It might be at night part of the race, but it'd be tough anywhere besides Texas or Iowa in those night races. I think it'd be great. The hardest part with competing with the NASCAR time slots is because NASCAR's just got so many races. They're almost every weekend, so it's going to overlap sometimes. Normally they do a pretty good job at making them back to back. So like IndyCar races at 1 or 2, and then NASCAR follows that up at like 5. Or NASCAR has a night race. They have a lot of night races. If IndyCar went to more places that had lights, I think they could do a lot with it. It's hard to get an IndyCar in an oval that's very compliant to IndyCars, and not have something like a Fontana situation where you got a giant pack race. So it's going to be difficult, but I think if you could do a Texas race at night, they used to race there at night, and I think both Iowa races really should be at night with the time of year. Iowa is probably the most brutal track physically wise for the drivers. With how you'd never have a point where you're not turning really and pulling G forces. So it's a night race, bringing the temperatures down. It'll promote better racing with more grip on the track, and then just it'll help out the drivers a lot.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was on mute. Yeah, I do agree. The night they need to have a couple night races. I know it's very hard with the with most every track almost being a road course. It's just too hard to light it. But I think Texas would be a really good one, and the Iowa races would be really good. It would showcase the drivers a lot better. Like Vance was saying, those colors, they just sparkle underneath the lights. I just think night races would be good. Maybe a couple Saturday races. Get away from the NASCAR. Like RC was saying, there's so many races that NASCAR runs. I mean, they run almost every week except for Easter and Mother's Day. I think they even race on Father's Day. They're like, we love the mothers, not the fathers. But I'm just kidding. But yeah, Texas would be an awesome as a night race, even if that's the only one. Iowa also, like RC was saying, the brutal temperatures during the day can just be hindrance to the fans sometimes. I mean, if you're going out there for two races in Iowa and it's 95 degrees, who wants to sit and watch a race in a 95-degree weather sometimes? But yeah, I do agree. A night race or two would help.
Yeah, it does seem like again, we are in agreement that if IndyCar was to go to night races, definitely take a look at both Texas Speedway and Iowa Speedway for obviously all of the right reasons. Before we wrap up the schedule here and we kind of give some predictions going into 2023 and we get on out of here for episode 17. RC as a driver, is there looking at this schedule? Is there a track that you would like to see IndyCar go back to, and is there one that you would like to see them take out? Or are you content with what the season schedule looks like currently?
I really like the schedule. I am also a big fan of the oval racing. I mean, I did a lot of oval racing in lights. I only got the chance to test the IndyCar at Gateway and then do IMS, obviously. But I did a lot of oval racing in lights. I think Phoenix needs to come back. I think that's always been a pretty good race. I mean, Michigan. There's a select few of these ovals, mile and a half or not. That I think if IndyCar would just do a test day with a few drivers and see how the racing is, and make sure tire compounds are all right to put these ovals on the schedule. I know that it's kind of like a NASCAR's area. I don't know why we don't go to a lot of these places anymore, but I think the oval racing's always been really good. I mean, they used to have the Triple Crown being Pocono, Michigan, and IMS, the 3 500 milers. So it's I would love to see something like that come back. I think we're good on road courses. I think we hit all the major ones. Sonoma would be a cool one to come back to, but I think Laguna is a pretty good substitute there. Yeah, I think the only thing really IndyCar is looking at is I think the oval racing. It's always been so good, and if we had the right package on the cars, so that it's not a pack race like Fontana situation or a Vegas situation, you have the right package on the car, and you can make the racing really, really, really fun to watch at a place like I don't know Michigan. Go back to Pocono. I don't know, maybe Nashville, some Nashville Oval. So there's a couple good options there for ovals. I just think IndyCar needs to maybe try them out, test them, see how with multiple cars to make sure it's not going to be a pack, and see how the which tire compound they would need to use, and send them out there.
RC, I gotta concur with you. I gotta agree with you. Michigan has to come back. I got a funny story. My 21st birthday, the weekend of my 21st birthday, I spent at the track in Michigan. There's a campground not too far away. My uncle and a couple of his buddies. Now we've grown to about 30 people. We went to that race. It was the very last race they did at Michigan, and it was the greatest thing ever. Heading to the store, there was a driver running along the road, and lo and behold, it ended up being Sam Hornish Jr. Pulled up, said hello. He was really nice to me, and then he just went back on his run. But yes, I am in a total agreement. They need to bring back Michigan. That would be an awesome race to have again. Silly that they don't. You could see the entire track, which is one of the best things that I love about a track. If I could see the entire track and see most of all the action, it's awesome. But yes, Michigan for sure needs to come back.
Yeah, I think with Michigan and there's a couple other mile and a half ovals or even just mile ovals that would be awesome to come back to. And it's really it just comes down to testing on it and making sure the current package works.
You
That's the
think
biggest deal.
RC? You think Kentucky would be is that an okay track? You know, not
I
knowing
think
too
they'd
much
have to
about.
resurface. I
Would
think
they?
they'd have to resurface it. I know it's really bumpy. If you've ever driven it on the sim, I don't think it's changed since then. So it definitely and have to be probably a resurfacing. But I mean, there's a lot of different ovals. Like I mean, even going back to Vegas, with it's all about the IndyCar package. I mean, when you had that big wreck there, it was because the package promoted pack racing. And I mean, everybody saw it at Fontana that one year where they were 3 wide, 8 rows back. It looked like the Indianapolis start, but they were racing. It was, and then that's where you're going to get big crashes. And if you can have a package that doesn't allow for 4 wide the entire time, you can run maybe 2x2 or occasionally a 3 wide situation. I mean, Pocono was always a good one, obviously, with Robert Wicken's crash there and people not wanting to go back, and some people really want it back. It's kind of a toss up. I just think it comes down to having the right package. They just need to get a couple of these guys that want to test, and you run them together, figure out tire compound wise, and if it test goes well, try and look at putting it on the schedule. But the oval racing's always been kind of IndyCar's. It was IndyCar's bread and butter until we went to a lot of road course racing, and I'd love to see some of that come back.
RC, speaking of Vegas, with F1 going there this coming November, do you think if it's if the race goes well for F1, do you think maybe IndyCar looks into doing the road course there in Vegas?
It's possible. It is definitely possible. I think a little bit of that goes back to nobody really wants to get compared, which I was incredibly surprised we even actually went to COTA the year we went, just because most people want to judge it based off lap time on how fast a Formula One car is versus an Indy car. I mean, for the example, you look at Formula E, they don't race a single track that any other series races because they don't want to be compared on lap time because those cars are just not that fast. And I think you see maybe a little bit of that with the IndyCar stuff. I mean, you look at the Miami Street course, that'd be awesome doing an IndyCar. And then the Vegas Street course, the layout that they're looking at, that would be awesome in an IndyCar. It's a lot like Toronto, very tight, probably pretty bumpy. It's going to be interesting with Formula One cars. I know once they went to Miami, they were having huge issues with reliability because of how bumpy it was. Just because those cars aren't exactly, they're a little more fragile. But yeah, I think it's a possibility that IndyCar could end up at Vegas.
I'd go for that race. Big gambler here.
Good stuff.
Yeah, well, we'll all be at the roulette
stuff.
table.
Can't wait. Yeah. Yeah, good good stuff there. Good. Obviously, looking forward to many more discussions that we're all going to have here in the upcoming weeks. But we do, before we get on out of here, we do need to make some predictions. As like we said, St. Petersburg is just right around the corner. Josh, I'm going to start with you. Let's go at the end of this in September. I know that's a few months away, but September. Who's the 2023 Rookie of the Year, and who is hoisting that points championship, that Astro Cup, in September? Josh, I believe you're muted again.
I'm sorry. I'm new to this podcasting thing. Sorry. Stingray Robb. Just in short, you can, who's not going to root for Stingray Robb? That's an awesome name. I think he will end up being rookie of the year. And then the person hoisting the cup at the end of the year, I'm going with Pato. Pato Award's gonna have a great season, and I think he's going to win the championship this year.
RC, what you got?
Oh man, that's tough. I know Stingray Robb was really, really good in lights, so I think rookie of the year is going to end up with him. And Coyne's got some really good cars. It's kind of hard to root against him. And like you said, I mean, how can you beat the name? But at the end of the year, man, it's so tough because it's so hit or miss from year in, year out. I think it could be a Newgarden year. I think it could be a Newgarden year. And then also, who doesn't want to see Scott Dixon win another championship? So it's kind of a toss-up. I mean, you got to go with a veteran, I feel like, in one of the powerhouses. It's either going to be – I think it's going to be a Penske car or a Ganassi car. I think McLaren's going to have an insanely good year. But being that consistent over the course of 17, 18 races is really, really tough. And that's where I feel like a lot of teams with the IndyCar experience are really, really good at. So I think you're going to see a Newgarden or a Scott Dixon at the end of the year.
Interesting choices, and I'll make rookie of the year. It's been a recurring theme of this show. A clean sweep across. Definitely, Lush pointed out, how can you go against a guy with the name Stingray Robb? But yeah, I think he is going to end up the 2023 Rookie of the Year when it comes to the points championship, the Astro Cup. I think the team that's going to win that, or driver that's going to win it, is, like I mentioned earlier, I think they're out to prove something in 2023. The success they had in 2022 was just an appetizer, I think, for what's going to be coming this team in 2023. And I'm going to say that not only, and I know what I'll just bold, not only will Pato Award win his first points championship, Pato Award is going to be the 2023 Indianapolis 500 winner. What do you think of that?
I mean, I think you're on the right track. He did get he got second last year, and he even said it. I think he had a run on Ericsson, and he bailed out of it, just knowing I need to take the second place points wise, especially because it was double points. It's going to be tough. The Indy 500 is always that's a flip of the coin. Who gets the right fuel mileage? Who hits the pit stops? Who's going to get a penalty in the pit stops? Because I'm pretty sure Scott Dixon and Palou had that race wrapped up until that happened. So it's a flip of the coin. I think that's a tough one to pick for Indianapolis 500 winner. That's just going to be like a pool. Throw a bunch of names in a hat and pick one.
Well, I hope I get RC Enerson if I
definitely going to be word. I like where your head's at, Josh. I like where your head's at. Anything else that you want to go over, touch on? And then also, too, I know you're starting to become a little more active on. So give everyone your Twitter handle.
Were you talking to me, Vance? You were broken up.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add here before we get on out of here? I know you're becoming more active on Twitter. So for people that want to follow you, where can they find you at?
On Twitter, I am at Warren0565, like it is on the screen. I'm excited this year. I didn't get to be on all the shows last year. I came in pretty much towards the end of the year. I'm excited to start watching the races more closely, getting involved more. You know, football was my go-to, but starting to love this IndyCar more and more, and having RC on has got my got my interest a lot more peaked. Hopefully, he'll be able to bring a little bit more insight into me in for me for the viewer and for the viewers and the listeners. But it's an exciting year, and I can't wait.
RC, before I throw it over to you again, huge thing coming being the driver analyst this year. Can't wait to hear what everything that you're going to bring week in and week out. Anything that you want to add or give out your social media if people don't follow you already?
Yeah, just first off, thanks for having me. It's cool. I mean, I talk with my dad and a few of my other racing friends. We talk about racing a lot, but it's cool to get on a podcast and talk racing, and I like doing it. But yeah, you guys can follow me on social media. It's just RC Enerson. I think that's on all my handles for Instagram, Twitter. So it's should be pretty easy to find. And then I don't know, stay tuned. Maybe you guys will see something announced next in the coming months. And hopefully, I'm pretty excited, and we're working hard to be back in the car. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do have a announcement to make, I know a platform that you could come on and do that. But again, our coming on, being a part of this podcast and in its second season. Also, huge thank you to Josh for joining us, and he'll be here full time as well. So you can't wait to get back on here, and we will be on a couple week hiatus, and then the week of St. Pete is when you'll be able to see our smiling faces again. So for myself, you've been listening to the Push to Pass podcast, and we will see you in the next